Cybersecurity industry is exploding in 2025. While on one hand, we are seeing layoffs in tens of thousands, but on the other, companies are scrambling for talent, AI is rewriting job descriptions, and leaders are desperate for people who can bridge the gap between the tech and business and hit the ground running. Sounds unfair, but that's what they're looking for. But with all the noise out there, certifications, job titles, career tracks, it's hard to know where to even start. That's why I put together this ultimate tutorial, the very best advice I have learned and lived over the past 20 years in cybersecurity. The ones I have shared in my previous videos, but carefully curated, selected, and compiled here just for you. And I promise you, this is the one video you need to watch in 2025 to start and especially grow your career in AI and cybersecurity, and eventually also grow in leadership. We'll cover everything from the 5 highest growth career paths, to the AI edge you must develop, to the leadership skills that will take you from hacker to CISO to a security leader in this industry. This isn't theory. These are the exact lessons that took me from a 40K as a coder to over 250K as a cybersecurity leader and a consultant. And today, I'm handing you that roadmap. You just need to set that plan in motion and take action, because bias for action is everything. So let's dive in. I am breaking down the 5 biggest shifts happening right now, what the hiring managers really want, how AI just rewrote the job market, and how can you pivot before everyone else catches up. Tip number 2 alone about AI security could change the way you position your next interview, your resume, your role in the next 60 days. Let's get into it. Number 1, skills over credentials. Just this first insight changes everything about how you should approach your career. Hiring managers are making a massive shift from pedigree to practical skills. They want mindset, adaptability, problem solving over memorized facts. They want you to be able to hit the ground running. It may seem unfair, but that's the reality of the market we are in right now. Here's the full picture, right? 52% of leaders say we don't have the right staff, not enough staff. Let me say that again. We don't have the right staff, not enough staff. Because it's not about the headcount anymore, but people with skills that can immediately bring value to the team and to the organization and hit the ground running. Here's what that means for you. You don't need 3 degrees or a long list of certifications. What you do need is to think like a strategist, be able to solve today's and tomorrow's problem now, and show up like a leader. A couple of years ago, there was a lot of emphasis on the technical expertise and very little to the attitude. Scales have shifted dramatically. Today, most of the profiles that are hired is based on attitude. Adaptability and eagerness to learn are now non-negotiables. But here's where it gets interesting, and that brings us to the biggest game changer of 2025. Number 2, AI is the game changer. Shocking, right? Yes, I'm being a tad bit sarcastic. But here's a fact. AI is writing so many job descriptions in cybersecurity, and if you're not paying attention, you're going to get left behind. AI is now both the answer and the biggest threat. It's creating entirely new roles while transforming the existing ones. Right? That's happening right in front of you. But on the other hand, and get this, according to another study from Darktrace, 78% of CISOs say AI-powered cyber threats are already having a significant impact on their organizations. That's up 5% from last year. What does it mean for you in your role or in your next role? You need to use AI to automate, improve, and correlate key security operations to better defend your organization against these AI-based threats. So what skills are really hot right now? Number 1 on top is AI and ML literacy. It is the first step. Start with the basic. Start with the understanding, building and implementing AI governance, responsible AI, and auditing AI models. I go into the details of AI governance, AI for cyber leaders, and responsible AI in my accelerator program. You can check it out on monicatalkcyber.com/accelerator to know when the next live session will be. Number 2, generative AI for automation, improvement, and correlation. So using LLMs for playbooks and code reviews, but also using AI mechanisms like pattern recognition or behavioral analysis to detect subtle adversarial inputs and defending LLMs against cyber attacks. Now, you don't need to be a data scientist or an ML expert, but you do need to understand at least three basic key pillars: AI governance, AI in cybersecurity, and AI for cybersecurity leaders in terms of responsible AI. Now, I recently spoke to multiple CISOs that are either hiring or expanding their team with skills in at least one of these three key pillars. These roles did not exist 2 years ago, right? Here's your edge: show that you can use AI to enhance, not yet replace, your critical thinking. Learn the basics of AI governance, AI strategy, AI in cyber, responsible AI. The winners aren't afraid of AI, they're using it as their superpower. Sure, there's a lot of hype around it, but it is your job to discern the hype from how you can actually leverage it. And while everyone's talking about AI, you can't really forget the basics, the foundation that still pays the bill. So that brings me to number three, which is skill stacking. Despite all the AI buzz, the foundation still matters. But more importantly, how you stack multiple skills between subject matter, business acumen, and leadership skills, those matter and count for even more. So, skill stacking is your ticket to higher salaries, better career path. Think about it. Let's look at some of these subject matter skills that are in demand right now, okay? Like, so let's say cloud security or identity and access management, offensive security, forensics, secure coding, incident management. They're all still a part of many cybersecurity roles, right? Some of them are being augmented by AI right now, and some will be in the future. But here's the secret sauce: think in hybrid profiles. The market wants developers who know how to secure shit, or engineers who can automate and correlate key data insights and analytics in a complex environment, or analysts who can present to executives and hackers who can speak business risk. And add to all of that leadership skills like building and implementing your vision, effective communication, stakeholder management, navigating politics, and you're stacking all of these on top of each other, which is skill stacking, and you become sought after. And add to that, and that you're using and leveraging AI in all of your role, that's literally where you want to go. So if you take a look at example of like let's say cloud security engineer, right? If you look at that job description, despite what it says on the paper, in reality it is 30% cloud architecture, 30% security automation, but a whopping 40% stakeholder management and communication. It's not just one subject matter skill. It's just not one skill anymore. The power lies in skill stacking. That's what helps you stand out. Speaking of communication, by the way, this next insight is make or break for your career growth. Number four, leadership skills or soft skills. Leveraging them is your key. Here's the hard truth: you can't scale security if you can't explain it. Communication, collaboration, and business strategy are now make or break skills. The best security leaders don't just protect businesses, they grow businesses tangibly in revenue, in operations, and in mission. Technical brilliance means nothing if you can't influence decisions. Unless you speak business and are good at leadership skills, you won't be really able to influence decisions, let alone move the needle forward. A fancy title isn't enough for that. 85% of cybersecurity professionals say communication is number one CSO skill, not technical expertise, communication. Because what hiring managers really want is you to be able to translate cyber risk into business language, present to the boards, not just technical peers, be able to collaborate cross functionally with legal operations, HR, and finance teams, and others, exhibit emotional intelligence and executive presence, your ability to not crush under pressure and still be able to manage and lead a crisis while you're at it, and then be able to navigate politics and move the needle forward. And all of that is true for all security leadership roles, especially CSO roles in Europe, in US, any region. Plus, executive leadership roles like CSO expect regulatory fluency. You need to be at least able to understand the basics of what's happening with GDPR or DORA or NIS2 or Sarbanes-Oxley or HIPAA. You're not just a technician anymore. You're a business advisor and you're a leader. And in today's world, it is your job not to just protect the business, but tangibly grow the business. So one of the students that I coached got promoted to a security leadership role in 12 months. How did that happen? He became their go to guy for translating their cyber risk for executive team in simple business language. He understood the business. He became a successful translator between technical reality and business decisions, giving him the unique position to influence decisions. But the biggest thing he did is showcase how, in his role, he could grow the business, which is only possible if you understand business and market drivers for your organization. And again, I talk about it in details in my accelerator program. And no matter now, wherever you are, this next one is creating massive opportunities, which is number 5. Doesn't matter where you're working, which country, which region, the compliance curve. I know, I get it, okay? We don't want to hear the word compliance because it just sounds like checkbox security. But the reality is, hiring is being reshaped by regulation and it's getting stricter every month. Nearly 50% of European firms now say hiring decisions are dictated by regulatory requirements. This isn't red tape, it's opportunity if done correctly. Your competitive edge requires knowing and understanding and decoupling regulatory frameworks and how they impact the business, whether it's DORA, NIS2, GDPR, EU AI Act, or any of those national equivalents that we have in, like, say, in UK, like Operational Resilience Framework, or others like SOX and HIPAA in US. It requires you to have the regional and international and cross-border experience in regulations, and it's becoming more and more of a must. Regulatory compliance is only boring if it's done as checkbox security. Otherwise, it's a business power and it's a great opportunity. You can use compliance for moving the needle forward in security if you do it right, especially for future leaders who understand that compliance does drive business strategy. It can be a powerful way to actually move the needle forward. So learning regulations in Germany, working with US regulations in the finance sector, and then leading compliance in data protection in the Nordics, all of that gave me the competitive edge to pivot across EMEA and EMEA-wide laws. Companies pay a premium for that cross-regional expertise. Now, let's talk about what's coming next, because the future is already here, right? I mean, it's here. Not everything, but a lot of it. And cybersecurity never sleeps. And staying ahead means tracking what's coming next. You need to be one step ahead of the game, right? The threats are evolving faster than ever, but so are the opportunities for professionals who see around corners. So I would recommend that you watch these spaces and keep an eye out for them really, really well. So deepfake driven, phishing, and LLM powered attacks. Understand really how things like generative adversarial networks like GAN works in terms of creating and detecting deepfakes, right? Then quantum readiness and encryption shifts that are coming. Software supply chain and API security, especially AI driven. Security of AI itself, like data poisoning, adversarial attacks, etc. So even if you're not in these roles yet, as a cyber leader or an aspiring cyber leader, learn and talk about these topics. It shows foresight and initiative. Hiring managers notice professionals who think ahead. Hiring managers want the right aptitude, the right skills with people that are already ready to hit the ground running. That could be you. By sharing your thoughts, your skills, your own experience, you create your opportunity for yourself. 53% of companies are still struggling to fill cybersecurity roles in 2025, even with millions of people wanting to break in. 53%. There is no talent shortage, but there's a huge gap between the expectations, reality, and the communication on both sides of the table. Companies come with unrealistic goals, right? Totally missing what really is needed. Candidates, on the other hand, apply to jobs left, right, and center, completely unaware of what exactly the role needs and how to communicate their experience in a way that resonates with the recruiters and the hiring managers. So there's this miscommunication and misexpectations and misalignment happening on both sides of the coin. So if you're in the same boat, you need to know what some of the key roles truly entail and what companies are looking for to stand out in 2025. Number 1, hacker. Let's start with the cool one, right? The role everyone thinks about first when they think of cybersecurity. I just started as a junior pen tester Because let's be honest, who doesn't want to feel like a cyber ninja? Call in Linux, Burp Suite, capture the flag competitions. I did it all. I even got my OSCP certification. For a while, I felt unstoppable. But here's what you don't see on LinkedIn posts. Penetration testing is 30% actual hacking, 30% reporting, and 40% communicating to the stakeholders what the heck to do with the findings. Because if you cannot do that, if your report sits in just a folder that nobody ever looks at, then you didn't really add value as a hacker. Especially in Europe where everything is compliance driven. You're doing assessments for ISO audits, GDPR compliance checks, PCI DSS reviews, and then you wait and wait for teams to actually fix the problems that you found, and many never do. Last month, I talked to a pen tester in Berlin. He found critical vulnerabilities in a client system, right? 6 months later, still not fixed. His report is sitting in someone else's folder or an email somewhere. Hacking, a very technical role. But if you really want to move the needle forward, you need to spend a hell lot of time writing reports that are consumable, that are understandable, that are digestible, and communicate things in a way that business leaders actually do something about it. So here's the pro of actually being a hacker. You get amazing hands-on technical experience. You build rock solid security foundations. You can also learn how to create exploits, which in most cases you will actually do if you want to succeed in it, right? And to be honest, it looks impressive on your resume. Why not, right? But here are the challenges. It will give you a limited view and experience of understanding the business strategy unless you manage to get into the right rooms. It will be hard to scale your impact across the business unless you move up and unless you speak risk, which is what you need to do anyway if you want to be a successful hacker. Then AI is already automating parts of it, right? So reconnaissance, basic scripting, and this will get even better going forward. We'll be using more and more AI-based offensive security, right? Not just by the bad guys, but also for testing our own systems. So you shouldn't just be a hacker anymore, but an AI augmented hacker. So here's the bottom line when it comes to this role, right? Great starting point, but if you want to lead, you will need to either pivot eventually or move in a different role in the same company or different company, or become a CEO of your own security company offering offensive security services, right? So there is a way to go forward and there's a way to be a leader in this track. I'm not saying that, but you need to understand the pros and the challenges that it comes with it. Now, here's the role that shocked me the most, and it's probably not what you're thinking. Number 2, head of IAM, or Identity and Access Management. This one, for me, came out of nowhere. I moved into Identity and Access Management almost by accident. I was looking to move to Norway. I didn't speak a single word of Norwegian. There were only 3 jobs in the entire portal that were in English or that allowed you to apply if you were not a Norwegian speaker. So I could only apply to 3 jobs, and I applied to 3 jobs. Apparently, those were the only ones that were available in English. To my surprise, positively, I got offers from all 3, but I agreed to join to lead Identity and Access Management for a bank. This job changed everything for me because IAM is where security, business operations, and compliance, they all merge into each other. It is basically the most fundamental and critical control within cybersecurity, right? Everything is access. As the head of IAM, you kind of hold the keys to the kingdom in a way. Who gets access to what, when, how, why, how does the architecture look like, right? How is the governance around it? As head of IAM, I led teams working with HR, IT, legal, cloud operations, because this touches every single department, starting from onboarding through reorganizations and all the way to offboarding, right? I have led IAM multiple times in my career, not just as the head of IAM, right? Also in my other security leadership roles, where my team and I owned IAM strategy, IAM governance, and the IAM process. So we defined, for example, the Zero Trust architecture, got it implemented, set up identity federation and automated user access across different departments, business units, and countries. So this role is still exploding in 2025. And why is that? What are the pros of an IAM role in cybersecurity? So here's the thing. Cybersecurity field expects massive hiring through 2025, and identity is at the center of everything, right? Almost every single data breach starts with compromised credentials or access, either through phishing or by other attacks. But access is everything. especially now with enterprise AI tools like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT now accessing company data. IAM becomes your first and last line of defense. Plus, Europe's regulation like NIS2 directive or DORA and GDPR require tight access governance. Companies can face millions of fine if they get this one wrong. A fintech company in Amsterdam got hit with a 2.8 million GDPR fine last year. Why? Poor access controls, right? So this one is kind of very key. But here are some challenges for the IAM role, right? You need to do a ton of stakeholder management, like a ton of it. IAM is often underappreciated until something breaks. You obviously need to understand the complex tech stack, single sign-on, LDAP, Azure Active Directory, Okta, and whatnot, right? All these things. I'm not saying you need to be expert in every tooling, but you gotta understand how the architecture fits with itself, right? Now, of course, as head of IAM, you won't have capacity to be in the weeds of everything, but you will need to have a good understanding of how things are actually interconnected, how your enterprise architecture looks like, and how it should look like, and how IAM governance should be done across the organization, both in process but also in technology. But here's the secret. If you love systems thinking, business logic, and architecture, IAM leadership is the second fastest path to CISO. Which is the first one? I'll come back to that. Now, this next role can pay you more than 120k euros in Europe, and it's not what most people would expect. Number 3, head of cloud security. This was probably my most exciting pivot, right? I went from infrastructure security, hacking, pen testing, to owning cloud security strategy for multiple clients and scaling across Europe. I wasn't just building firewalls anymore or hacking products. I was helping the businesses digitalize their enterprise from legacy IT, OT, to IoT and whatnot across environments safely. I also ended up joining the board of Cloud Security Alliance. So whether the teams were assessing cloud readiness, migrating apps and data, or spinning up and securing containers, implementing identity access management in Azure, or rolling out DevSecOps pipelines, I could see the direct business impact every single day. So why is this role absolutely exploding? And that's a great fit for you. Cybersecurity market in EMEA is projected to grow by 7.19% through 2029. And most of that growth is cloud driven. Now, even though the number is only for EMEA, the fact is that most of the growth that's happening across the world is cloud driven. With AI tools now everywhere, hosted on the underlying data center infrastructure, and most enterprise AI models being cloud based, companies need cloud based security for their large language models. Prompt injection attacks or data leakage or model poisoning, right? But here are the challenges with this role. You need, of course, to have some understanding and technical knowledge of IAM and CI/CD pipelines, Kubernetes, and so on. Vendors, especially in the cloud security space, do change everything constantly, right? So you need to be really up to date and on speed with that. There is overwhelming complexity. You will spend half the time convincing developers that security won't slow them down, especially when you're trying to get compliance around your cloud environments, because that's a big challenge. Even more challenges when it's across geographies where regulations are quite different, right? So you gotta understand the legal landscape when it comes to cloud security as well. But if you know how to help companies digitalize their business through secure cloud environments and speak the language of engineers and developers, you have the companies fighting over for you. So cloud security is actually a good fit for you. Now, this next role might sound boring, but it's actually a secret weapon that boards love most. Number 4, head of GRC and privacy. Look, I'll be totally honest. I used to think governance, risk, and compliance was the boring corner of cybersecurity. Having come from a hacking background, which was really fun, I was like, GRC, really? But I was completely wrong. After spending months dealing with GDPR audits, SOC 2 certifications, and ISO implementations, and data protection, I actually gained massive respect for this field. But that's only going to be true if you do it correctly. If your goal is just to check some box, you may do it, but you won't do justice to the role, and it's not going to be the most fun. Because the role isn't just about writing policies. It's about enabling trust with regulators, with clients, with your own board of directors, helping them navigate the risks, but also take the right risks for their business. GRC isn't just a checkbox exercise. Data protection isn't just a checkbox exercise, and privacy isn't just a checkbox exercise. And despite what so many people say, to be successful in GRC, you got to have the basic understanding of technology, right? It's not just of filling forms, it's not just writing policies. You got to have that expertise to be able to make sure that's actually implemented. And it's not just in paper, because a policy is only going to get you so far. That doesn't provide any level of security, to be honest. It's about managing business risk, providing the right approach to regulatory compliance, and ensuring data subjects' rights to data protection and privacy. And that requires not just policy, but also implementation. So, what makes GRC and privacy so powerful right now? Various regulations like GDPR, NIS2, DORA, the EU AI Act, they're all out there, right? And different geographies have different regulations of their own. Companies must comply or they can face millions of fines, right? Job postings for cybersecurity and privacy leads basically surged 40% from 2023 to 2024 because the regulatory landscape is so complex, right? Roles in this space often escalate or go directly to chief information security officer or chief security officer or chief risk officer or head of security and privacy or data protection officer or VP of compliance. So there's a direct path from that field, from this domain, from this role to executive leadership role. But this is not just going to happen if you're just going to do GRC or privacy as a checkbox. It won't. So here are some challenges with this role, right? It can feel bureaucratic sometimes, especially if you or others around you simply see it as a checkbox exercise, right? It's obviously less hands-on technical work, but not understanding the technical landscape can be a big downside. It's what I was telling you earlier. It's often underpaid compared to engineering roles. I mean, you got a lot of work to do at a leadership level, but still often it is very underpaid role, unless you're in a heavily regulated industry like finance or pharma. But here's the secret sauce, right? For career changers, especially from legal, finance, risk, or audit backgrounds, this is one of the fastest tracks into cybersecurity leadership. And now, the ultimate goal that took me 4 years to reach after being a hacker. Number 5, Chief Security Officer. Finally, the leadership executive in the corporate world becoming a Chief Security Officer. It was never the plan, to be very honest. I didn't even know back then who a Chief Security Officer was. I didn't land this overnight. It took me almost 4 years, multiple career pivots, and honestly, a lot of imposter syndrome along the way. But once I decided I will become a CSO, I signed my first official gig within 90 days of me deciding that I'm going to become a Chief Security Officer. In my executive C-level roles, I was also responsible for enterprise risk, privacy, data protection, business continuity, and enterprise resilience. So is the case for some, and maybe not for many. So this is what you need to understand about this role. And here's the most important thing that I learned. Being a CSO isn't about being the best hacker or the best project manager. It's about enabling the business while protecting it, defending it, and leading when it ends up in crisis, right? And today, even that's not enough. It's not just about protecting, defending, and leading in a crisis. It's about actually growing the business. You need to show tangibly how you, as a security leader, as an executive leader, can use cybersecurity for growing the business and moving the needle forward for the business's mission. Learn the language of risk and constantly skilled up without getting lost in certification overload. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, you need to show these 3 things if you want to really level up and accelerate beyond the norm. Number 1, that your security skills are business relevant right now. You need to showcase value in what you're doing and what you're capable of. And you need to be able to position yourself as someone who adds measurable value in a way that can have a measurable impact in the company and for the business. Sure, I got certifications, but when I believed they served the direction I was already heading towards, I was very strategic about it. about when and which ones I got. I didn't just collect certifications, I picked strategic ones at the right time. So when I wanted to get into management role, I chose CISM, not CISA, not any other skill and any other certification. Why? Because that was already helping me, that fit me towards my goal, which is leading teams and managing risk, not just auditing or hacking. When I wanted to become a CISO or a CSO, I actually didn't care much for certifications. Neither did the hiring managers, as much as showcasing to them that I could manage their entire cybersecurity program and move the needle forward for the business. Even before I became a CSO, I accidentally, without even realizing, invested time in learning and, more importantly, doing a couple of things. Sometimes even failing at those things, but eventually succeeding at each and every one of them. So here are the things that I did, that I learned, that I invested in: how to build, get, and manage budget, how to communicate to different stakeholders, how to manage internal and external stakeholders and their expectations, how to run programs, how to manage resources, how to report to business stakeholders and board. But more importantly, I moved from being just a tech gal or just a hacker to their strategic security advisor. For that, you have to understand the business and become business fluent. So, right after my hacking gig at Siemens, I became a consultant and was no longer just hacking, but also managing large offensive security projects and IT risk programs for Allianz. I put everything I had learned from my mistakes, from my failures, from my learnings, all into practice, all at once, managing global stakeholders, working directly with global CISOs, eventually moving to PwC, and managing even bigger projects and programs from multiple companies that were merging together. So now, instead of just doing all of that for one company, I was doing that for three companies merging together at the same time. So things like mergers and acquisition, third party risk, and vendor management all came into the picture on top of the skills I'd already learned. Through all these examples and throughout my journey, here are three things that I leaned into during every pivot in my career that changed drastically what my next role looked like, and eventually took me from being broke in my 20s to more than 250K in just base salary in my 30s. Number one, problem proximity power. What do I mean by that? The closer you move to more expensive problems, the more valuable you are. This is what I call problem proximity power. Position yourself where the stakes are really high. Even as a hacker, early on in my career, I got close to the business, not just security folks. Cybersecurity industry has a big problem. We're so often caught building, growing, and living in our own echo chambers. That echo chamber is preventing you to grow. We don't need to convince each other how important security is. We already know that. And yes, while we do need a tight knit community and we're a part of that, which is great, but ultimately we're solving problems for the business, for the organization, for the greater mission. So whether you are a security leader or you're working with security leaders, you need to influence not just security, but people outside cybersecurity on why they should give two shits about what you're doing, and more importantly, how you can help them grow their business through cybersecurity. The closer you get to their worst pains, the more impact you will have. The more expensive those pains are, the more leverage you will have and to get what you really want. They worry about fines, they worry about loss in revenue, they worry about reputation. Focus on what they care about, not just what a security best practice guideline is telling you. In each of my leadership roles, I have showcased multiple times to other business leaders and executives, and even to the board, not only where and how we managed the enterprise risks through security, but how we built more resilient business, faster business, with better services, with better profit. The more expensive the problem you solve, the more valuable you become. By the way, before we go forward, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss strategies that could change your career and your business in AI, cybersecurity, and leadership. Okay, so point two, build your personal brand. Look, it was never the intention, at least not in the beginning. But over time, I built my brand both offline and online that opened doors for me that I didn't even know existed. And personal brand doesn't just exist on LinkedIn. It exists at meetups, it exists in virtual rooms, it exists in real physical rooms, and most importantly, it exists even when you're not in the room. Because you've built your brand, your value, authority so strong that people talk about you, they refer you, and they socialize you, even when you're not there in your absence. That personal brand got me my hacker role at Siemens. That personal brand got me my consulting gig at PwC. And that personal brand got me my first CSO contract. In fact, that personal brand got me every dream role from most of my career, even when I was not active on LinkedIn. So for example, as I told you before, before I even got into the official risk management role, I was already hosting risk management workshops internally. In doing that, I was building this brand that showcased that I could help you grow your business through cybersecurity. I didn't wait for permission. I created proof offline and online, and a platform isn't stopping you. It's you that is stopping you. So you need to put yourself in the position to be found. Speak at events, virtual or in person, publish ideas, network with purpose, make hiring managers say, we need someone like you. And none of this is about proving just what you can do. It's also about showcasing what you're already doing. It's about being found. It's about others wanting you, because once people believe they need you, you got all the leverage in the world to not only ask for what you deserve, but negotiate your worth even better. So I'm running my 1 week, 5-day live accelerator program where I not only show, but help you build a 90-day plan to become top 1% in security leadership. Everything from building the foundations, breaking and expanding in your dream role, bridging the gap, building and implementing your influence in the organization and externally, and becoming visible so you can attract opportunities towards you. Number 3, get strategic with every decision. Look, I didn't get a certification just because I wanted to have a certification. I didn't care about being an auditor, so I didn't ever care about having a CISA. Every cert that I hold was backed by experience and the direction I wanted to go in. I led security management, governance, risk, and compliance before even holding a GRC title, and then got me a CISM on top of that. I led privacy and data protection, and then got me a CIPP on top of that. For me, certification became amplifiers, not crutches. I wasn't waiting for them to make the leap. In fact, I did the opposite. I made the leap by actually doing the work, learning along the way, failing sometimes, and then added extra credibility, which again was backed by the real experience. Every minute that you spend on learning for a certification exam that is not bringing you any value, you're taking away precious time away from actually skilling up or gaining real experience or learning from those that have actually done it, that are steps ahead of you. Because all of that is actually moving you away from your goals, not closer. I know someone who is working in the role of head of cyber defense for a very large organization, someone who's a long list of certifications, but yet has no clue what he's doing because he never spent real time in actually doing and making the effort, making mistakes, learning from their own mistakes, but also others that have done it. The most expensive mistakes are the ones that you make yourself. If you want to reduce the cost of those mistakes, you want to learn from the mistakes that others have done and from those that have actually walked the path that are way ahead of you in the journey. Same is true for resumes and job applications. I don't target 100 jobs and apply to them left, right, and center. At one point, I did. And I realized it was a big mistake. In fact, that's the mistake I had to learn from and fix it so I could get my first CISO contract. Here's what changed everything for me. First, I learned to align security with business goals. Not just saying we need better security, but saying like this security investment will reduce our regulatory risk by 40% or X%, whatever that is, and save us, say, $2 million in potential fines. You can make those probabilistic calculations. At one of my previous companies, everyone was focused on the latest threat. I focused on something different. I calculated that our current security posture could cost us $5 million if we failed a compliance audit, or around $2 million if we lost our key customer that was consuming critical services that were exposed to the risk. I presented this to the board with a clear action plan. 6 months in, I was not only leading the entire security strategy, but my team and I were managing enterprise risk and business continuity. Second, I became the go-to person for cybersecurity strategy and helping them grow the business, not just firefighting. Today, it's not enough that you protect the business. You need to be able to grow the business and help the business serve their mission better, faster, and more efficiently. Anyone can respond to incidents. Leaders prepare the business for what's coming next and help them grow it. I have done that in many corporations, even led product portfolios, growing both the portfolio and the revenue through security by more than 20% in just 2 years. Great cybersecurity leaders do not just protect the business, they grow it. That is the biggest difference. That's what stands you apart. That's how you stand out. That's what sets you apart. Third, I took ownership of crisis management, not just technical response, but business communication, the lessons learned, helping the business navigate the murky waters of a security incident and crisis, along with improvement plan. This is where most people fail. They handle the incident but miss the leadership opportunity. 55% of cybersecurity experts report increased stress from threats. But leaders aren't just stressed, they are strategic. You can't be constantly in a stress state or in panic mode. Leaders are thinking about AI threats, supply chain risks, quantum computing before everyone else. That helps you, again, stand out and gets you faster and closer to a security leadership or a promotion. Now, what is the fastest path to cybersecurity leadership? So, here's the thing, your career path is unique. If I were looking to get promoted faster, here's how my roadmap would look like. Three things that you can do, and you can already start doing it this week. Step one, find a mentor who's already in leadership, right? Not someone who's been an analyst for 15 years, but someone who's actually making the business decisions about cybersecurity. LinkedIn is your friend here. Find CISOs, security directors, VP of security. Send them a thoughtful message about a specific challenge that they've written about or anything that you can contribute to. Don't ask for a job. Bring them value first, then ask for insights. Make it mutually beneficial. Don't just go out, hey, this is my CV. Can you find me a job? Or can you find me my next role? Step two, volunteer for high impact projects at your employer or organizations like Cloud Security Alliance. When there's a new compliance requirement, for example, raise your hand. When there's a security awareness campaign, lead it. When there's a vendor evaluation, right, get involved. Now, I'm not saying you raise your hand for everything just to burn yourself out. You gotta be strategic about the kind of involvement that will impact your career the most positively. If you're wondering, book a one-to-one coaching call with me and I can help you figure it out. Because you can't say yes to everything, but you need to be able to raise hands in certain cases where there's an area for growth and improvement right away. So, for example, a study has shown 45% of global organizations will be affected by supply chain attacks by 2025. If your company doesn't have a supply chain security strategy, well, congratulations, you just found your leadership project. I mean, this is not a new thing, right? Supply chain has been a big issue, but it's just growing. Step number 3, this is the most crucial. Build relationships with executives and decision makers. Security leaders, especially great security leaders, don't just talk to security people. They talk to HR about what kind of insider threats that would be relevant for the HR to be involved in, to finance about cyber insurance, to fraud teams about AI-based fraud, to legal about data privacy and data protection. Best security leaders talk with stakeholders outside the security bubble. So here's your homework, okay? This week, schedule a 15-minute coffee chat, either virtually or in person, with someone outside of cybersecurity, someone making business decisions where obviously cybersecurity plays a role. Ask them about their biggest business challenge. I guarantee you, you will find a security angle. You're not asking them about cybersecurity challenge, you're asking them about a business challenge, and you will find a cybersecurity angle there. Now that you've seen the roadmap, the next step is action. Bias for action is must.